Okay. Looks like everything is working. Just checking. Great. Cool. Well, here we are for number 6, session number 6. Um, Between this session and the last session, the big news, of course, if you follow Figma's updates, of course, the Adobe acquisition, but more exciting, I think, is the open beta about the extension of what's possible with nested instances inside of other components and how we can now bubble up those nested components properties in that parent component's properties panel. That's a huge feature. I've been wanting that for over a year. Maybe even, I mean, like since variants came out and we got our kind of our heads around them, figured out like how powerful they could be. But once you start to put together these really complicated components where you kind of like organism size, I suppose, if you follow atomic design, it can be hard to work with those, right? Because sometimes you would find yourself repeating the same sort of changes in configuration at the parent component level as a way to get around having to deep click through your layers and then select those nested components, make the changes, and then get out of there. So yeah, there was always kind of like that trade-off. Do you want like tons of instances and repeating the same properties, which didn't feel great for, especially for design systems, because that seems like more risk that you're taking on by manually recreating the exact same sort of permutations and configurations of your components. But it was also just a pain to set up. And then if you don't do that, you're asking folks to do a lot of clicking and a lot of hunting through components that they might not have had a hand in setting up, especially the more complicated ones. It might be a bit of an intimidating thing to dive through the layers panel and do that. So this, all that to say, really, I think, huge quality of life feature, not only for people who architect and manage components, maybe do design systems work, but also component users. I've got a blog post on ways to make components more delightful to use, and that is definitely going to need to be updated to reflect some of this. So looking at what's next in the build. Last time, this got all finished out. We've got a component that accurately represents this left kind of sidebar. And I said that this next time I want to move up to this piece in this stream, which I do. And there's a lot of interactivity here. You know, there's not a whole lot of elements. Like we've really only got these 2 chunks within this kind of like navy blue field, but within them, there's a lot of stuff going on. So it's going to be a lot of prototyping. Figuring out some of this stuff is going to be, yeah, it's going to be fun to make some of these things. There's just a lot of like these little hidden panels, these modals, I guess you could call them. And they have different effects on the screen. Like we can see this one sort of dims the entire background, which is interesting. This one doesn't. And then for here, I think it's just the date picker and entering notes. But yeah, I think a lot of progress can be made. Before doing that, though, I want to go back, you know, before we get too deep into another section, I want to go back through and look at existing components to see what can be tidied up, what can be made better with the new open beta. So our placeholder doesn't need to change. It's just a frame. It doesn't contain anything. But this guy, the budget name, and this icon on the side, and we've got different states here. Let's see. I suppose this could become, let's see, a property. We'll call this budget name. Same for the email. Account email. But folks aren't going to be swapping out the logo or this icon. That is going to be the same. Now, something that we didn't do last time is work on this piece of interactivity, this ability to create a new budget. If you have different budgets, opening that up, and then messing with your budget settings. I think I'd like to do this later. It seems like more the administrative end of YNAB, kind of like account management. And I'm really just wanting to focus first on this screen, like kind of the main meat and potatoes of what the product actually is. So even building this menu, I'll save it for later. But all that to say, this chevron, this caret, doesn't need to change. Even when you click on this, it doesn't get flipped. So that's good. With these, our view tabs, again, the label, actually, we could componentize that. Those would then become, I guess, content carriers of sorts, but the names of these things are never going to change. And, you know, here we're just representing, like, the job of this component is to represent those different states of interactivity and what changes happen visually with those states. So it like kind of sets up the anatomy and sets up the visual styles, but we then override the labels for these buttons or these tabs in this bigger sidebar component. So I don't know that this this layer, if we need to bubble up the content as a component property, because presumably if anybody else was using this library, building prototypes with it, they wouldn't need to edit that stuff. And it wouldn't be all that difficult to just hold down Command and edit it if there was some sort of design work being done to say like, okay, maybe instead of reports, we're calling it charts and graphs. I don't know, something else. They could still experiment with it, but I don't think we need to optimize for making that super, super easy. Same with these. I think these are the same deal. We tested this out to see what are these different accordions for different kinds of accounts that YNAB lets you track. And we discovered that there's only 3. You've got your regular budget stuff, checking account, savings accounts, those sorts of things. If you have any loans or you have any debt, those get lumped together under loans. And then if you're investing anything, that kind of gets put under this third bucket for tracking, and users don't get to edit what these 3 buckets are called. They're always the same thing. And the way that we handle that here, if I grab an instance of this, is, you know, the idea would be if a designer is working on a prototype, they're building a YNAB screen, they can opt in to having loans and tracking account. We're giving them budget for free, which maybe we shouldn't. Maybe this actually doesn't account for, you know, our empty state where, you know, before you've set anything up. So that's actually something we could go back and do. This is good to just review. Need to make the budget account accordion optional and add in an empty state variant in case someone was ever designing an onboarding prototype. Okay, so that's that part. Other opportunities to swap or bubble up nested components. I think right now it's mostly just icons. Like we haven't put together anything too complicated. This sidebar, this interface representative, is our most complicated component yet. Oh, and you know what we could do though? Okay, we're gonna get there, but first I want to kind of just handle these left to right. So button sidebar add account. Now, even though this is a button, and Figma's example when they released this open beta was a great one. Buttons are always great examples for demoing, you know, the utility of certain types of components. And now this new feature, right, it would be really cool if when you're working with an instance of a button to be able to not only swap the icon out from the properties panel, which we could do, right? That would be really easy. We would just select all of these. Here we would say that we want to create an instance swap property. We'd call it icon. And then here it is. And now we could swap with any other component. This new, the new open beta with the kind of extension of this feature lets us go even further to set up preferred icons, right? And we would do that at the main component level. So, oh, okay, it looks like I gotta opt in. Yes. I don't want to simplify all features. We've got how to use this component. Where does that live? It might be in here. Yes. So you go to your instance swap property, and then there's this thing called preferred values. So if there were certain icons that for this button, we wanted to make it really easy for other designers to swap over to, we could select those here. But again, with this one, nobody should need to touch this. Same for the label and for the icon. Like, this is what it is. I mean, they can. It's not overridable, but when imagining a future where this is like a library that designers could use to prototype experiences in YNAB, this portion of the interface is really static. Like, not a whole lot is changing here, except for maybe adding and removing accounts. And like this button, probably not going to see a whole lot of action. So I'm happy to leave that as is. We've got a label and the icon that's going to be there. The label gets updated when it's in the context of the sidebar component. You can see here it says add account. So that's already, I think, in good shape. Here we just have these different types of accounts that we have, right? There's ones that we manually added, and then we would manually add the transactions to. But then there's other bank accounts that we might add, or tracking accounts, or loans or debts that are being automatically synced, where the transactions, YNAB is kind of watching for the transactions. We've given it permission to look at that account's kind of details, doing that through, what is that service? Plaid, I believe is what they use. So the key means that, you know, YNAB has permission to pull in transactions automatically, which is just mostly a time-saving feature. These don't have to be separate components, but I think this still makes sense as a setup. So the idea would be, as you're, you know, building a prototype and you're putting together maybe like a set of components for your prototype, and maybe most of your accounts are manual, but then some of them are synced, you could swap. And the reason why I don't want them to all be in the same component, right? We could do the same thing where there's maybe a toggle switch. We just have one account row component, and there's like a toggle, there's a Boolean toggle that we use to say, like, is this synced? Yes or no? Totally doable, and probably wouldn't see any differences in performance, but I'm keeping these separated out kind of for performance reasons. And I'm really trying to only use variants. I want to see how much I can stick to only using variants for interactive states. That seems to be what they're strongest at, and what kind of keeps the count as low as possible. The other thing I'm thinking about is, I don't know how to put it, how to like describe this yet, but it's like these are kind of it's the same thing, but they've got like different meaning now. It's the composition is pretty much the same. It's really just something, it's like a configuration that's changing here. I don't think there's a wrong or right way in this particular instance. I just want to use separate components, again, to keep my variant count down. I think this would really come down to like, how does the design team want to work? And maybe like the designers who would be using this in that universe, how would they want to work? For me, this is how I want to work. I want to try keeping these separate. It would be really easy to combine them if I decided to do that. So similar thing here, I think. Oh, but the account name, that could be something that where we take the content and we'll just name it after itself. Oh, I do want to try something though. I think I was too quick when we were evaluating this last time. Let me put these in a frame so we can see. So last time I wanted to test out, that's the other thing too that we have to think about is like overrides, right? It's not going to always say account name. It's going to say something like checking. If we switch from manual to synced, we keep, yes, the text override that we made persists. But there was something else I thought when I was setting up the chapters after the last stream was finished that I caught something that was wrong. Oh, we can try the dollar amount. Let's say we have $100 and now we go from synced to manual. That looks fine. Okay, maybe I misremembered. But yeah, same thing. I am not going to, you know, this nested component. I won't make that a swap. We're not yet even deep enough yet for this new feature to really start taking shape. And then we've got these leftover. Yeah, these need to get turned into icons at some point. We'll just tuck those over there. Here, I think, is where we could really use some new stuff, like this new feature. So I'm just going to reveal loans and tracking so we can do this because, again, working with an instance. Oh my gosh. There we go. Make this look a little bit more realistic. So if I was working with an instance of this and I wanted to set up 3 budget accounts, like, yeah, let's say, yeah, 3 budget accounts and 1 loan account. So I'm not using tracking, so I could turn that off. And then what I would have to do is click into here, you know, click, click, click. That was like 3 or 4 to get down to budget. And I would open this up and I'm presented with a swapper, right? Now this is easy enough. I could swap this out for a list of, let me grab some of these. Again, something like checking, savings. Maybe I have another savings account and I've called it emergency. And this would be like working in a local file, right? So I would call this let's see, local budget accounts. And then when I came back over here, I would want these to replace where the purple swapper is. But to get to the purple swapper, this is why this new feature is so powerful. Like I said, you have to click all the way through, get to that right layer, either the swapper itself and then swap it as you would, you know, before. We could do it from the properties panel, but I could come here and just swap that out. Make sure that these are all filling all available space. Oh, why did it do that? Local budget accounts. Bill. Okay, well, that was really interesting. And is this correct for the UI? No, we want these to be in line. What's going on there? Okay, well, first I want to, before I fix the UI stuff, I want to get back to this and see what the deal is here. Maybe I want to add a variant, but not really. And I will add auto layout here and set that to fill. So now, not only are my interface representatives that represent single account rows filling all available space, but so is their parent container, like them as a group. And it can do that because it has a parent set to fixed. And when I move this around, we can see that that's working. So now, when I come in here, I swap this for local budget accounts. Yeah, it's still weird. So I think that's happening because my placeholder component has a fixed width. So what would happen if we changed that? Actually, let's do this first. I want to try... Oh. I want to try first swapping that in. Right, we've got placeholder, local budget accounts. Okay, it's busted. What happens if we select our placeholder here, set that to fill? Oh, I want to see that. Okay, it did work. I'm going to undo a couple times so we can see that happen again. So this is something that I was just talking with a colleague about this last week at work, where when you're working with placeholders, it seems like, and I need to set up an experiment for this because sometimes it does what we're seeing here and sometimes it doesn't. But what it's doing is this placeholder, it's using auto layout. It has auto layout applied to it, and I think, let's verify that. Go to main component. It doesn't. We should apply auto layout. Zero out all these padding settings. Okay, return to instance. I wanted to have auto layout because we're going to be swapping it for other things that have auto layout because I'm going to use auto layout everywhere. So that way I get all three options, fixed, hug, fill, at pretty much every level except for something that's on the canvas because that one won't be able to fill all available space on an infinite canvas because logic. So glad that we caught that. But so this is set to hug, right? It's hugging on itself, that's fine. And when you swap in something, it seems like those hug settings left over from the placeholder kind of are left over. I guess this is changed to fixed. Let's reset this again just to really test this out. So we're going to open our budget. We're going to swap this for our local budget. Yeah, strange. Let's see. It's Figma sets it to fixed. So I feel like what's happening is we're swapping in something that is filling all available space for something that was originally set to hug. And those two resizing rules are kind of at odds. If you've seen the bidirectional hugging video from pushing Figma to its limits talk from Config 2021, there is a hack around it to get something that's filling on its parent container, but the parent container is hugging. Typically, you wouldn't be able to set that up, but I think that's what we're running into here is hug and fill canceling each other out. So what we can do is instead we can override this placeholder's horizontal resizing settings from hug, set it to fill, and you can see that that fixes even our swapped in components, horizontal resizing. So this has some effect still. Like it's not just holding space, but it's also setting some rules about, like, it still has some influence over the resizing rules. So yeah, we want that to be filling all available space. So now we got to figure out what's going on here. We want these to be pushed over. They need to be flush against this right edge with that guy. So I think what needs to happen then is we got to go back to, not Command U, Command Y. We got to go back over here to our, not just our account name, but our accordions. Oh, it's up here now. Yeah, because we want that icon to come over here. So this is not at the right level. We've got a container. Maybe what we need to do, okay, and that's set to fill. And we've got all this padding on the right, so we need to cancel that out and instead put the 24 pixels of padding up here. Right, so now that's looking a little closer, but it's still off. What's up? Let's put a guide in place. It could be simple as just continuing to nudge this over until it's in the right space. Was it 28? 27. And now, if one of these was our synced account, yes, that would show up in the right spot. Yeah, because we can see there's space for it here. So great, that's working great. So that was good for testing out some stuff, but still haven't even gotten to the juiciest part, which is, and I'm going to reset this again, right? We want to be able to, let's size that back down. I want to be able to, with sidebar as an interface representative selected, see like that open and close functionality and swapping functionality here at the parent level. So what we need to do back at the main component is, let's see, I think here we need to come into layers without properties. I don't think I want to do that. Let's see, I think what we got to do is come in here. I don't want to swap this. Oh, how is it done? Do we just select the whole variant? Parent component, sidebar. Oh, there we go. Okay. No, you select the main component, and then when you go to add a property, you can expose properties from nested instances. Perfect. So this is great. And we know that we want to expose that for our view tabs. What else? Sidebar section. I don't think we want any of that. Not the referral CTA. I think it's just these three. Oh, the sidebar sections. That would be... Oh, wait. Oh, that's what we actually want. Not the view tabs. The tabs are these things. We do want the sections. Great. Now this is going to be... Oh, it's going to be tough because when we're working with this, you know, if loans is turned off... Oh, that's great. Yeah. If I turn off loans, that was the last sidebar slash section item in our list. So it hides it, which is great. And so now here, again, like if I wanted to work with budget, I can just open that up. Here's my placeholder, swap it, and yeah, I'm not clicking through to get to all this stuff. So that's working wonderfully. Maybe we can take care of this empty state thing. It's kind of bothering me. In that case, in the case where it's an empty state, I might not want to use I feel like that might actually be another variant. Could also do a separate component. The same way we're doing here with the account row manual versus synced, like sidebar, empty state, sidebar, has accounts, right? Just so that way, because those two things, it has to be one or the other. And like you can't not have any of these sections visible and also not have your little empty state call to action like, hey, we need you to hook up an account. You can't have that in between. And I think just the Boolean toggles would allow for that. They would allow for an instance that would never show up in the wild. So I think we can do that. Sidebar has accounts. Now, the other thing I want to do here is we need to hide some things here that got revealed. Oh, that's why. That's why I think, yeah, we had to hide those sections here. And this keeps jumping when we turn our... Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, let's go to that main component. Can we reset what's going on here? Or give it, make sure everything is is set to be a square. Now, when we open and close this, yeah, that's a lot better. Okay. Okay, sidebar has accounts, sidebar empty state. So this would be one where we have none of these. And this add account button might get a different treatment too. So let's go back and delete all these. We'll close these accounts. Might need to get rid of all of my transactions. Yeah, before I can delete any accounts. Okay, great. Oh, and we've got some empty states to take screenshots of. Put this over on the inventory. So that's an empty state. We've got this captured. I want to get reports. And these other things in reports in their empty states, because that will be hard to do once we start actually putting fake data in. We won't be able, I think, to very easily get empty states, so this is good. All right. So the button is actually still in place, but now we've just got this like empty state component that we need to deal with. So real quick, we'll just design that here. No accounts. You can't budget without adding accounts to YNAB first. How about adding one now? Oh, I don't know what. Definitely don't have a style for this. I'm actually going to break the style and just eyeball it. Really close. Okay, 20. This is a really simple one. Definitely not that. More like that. And let's just inspect on this to see, is this using it? Well, I don't know. It probably won't tell us. That's been a struggle, is to figure out, like, is the color a flat color, or is it using some sort of transparency? I think I decided to just work with flat colors, so I'm not making guesses about that stuff. Teal 300 looks correct. I have my doubts about how accessible that is. I think I want a little bit more padding on the bottom. Cool. That looks good. So we can add that here. Call this sidebar account empty state. And we've got our empty state here. And I would just drop that in. I wonder if this needs to be a component. It actually might not. We might be able to just handle that directly in here, because this is the only place this is going to show up. We won't need this. We do probably want it in some sort of container without padding, set to fill. Yeah, and see how much space. There's this like weird offset going on over here, like slightly off. So I think I need this to be in a container too. That might be true even when there are accounts. We'll find out again, but just gonna call that container. Same with this, call this container. That looks right. And then when this is all collapsed, Okay, it is the same. Great. So now, again, if we're working in a local file, has accounts, empty state, great. Let's make sure these are set to fill, which means this has a fixed width. How does that work? Yeah, that makes sense. That is also going to be set to fill. Great. Okay. Just want to put that at like a realistic width. Okay, so we've got our empty state, which means I can resolve that comment. The icons are still messed up. Oh, okay, max width is 596 before dropping to a minimum width of 150. Maybe we should set this at its minimum width. Well, nah. These are good notes, though. I might put that in the component description or translate it to the component description at another point. All right, so yeah, this is great. This is great. We can go back to has accounts. And if I wanted to do the same with tracking, you know, now I've got this. I could put my same local budgets in here. Oh my God, it's so fast to do. But something that I've got beef with about the setup is that these are not named in a helpful way. Sidebar slash section, sidebar slash section, right? So we should call this, and I think, you know, these little symbols that I'm using to denote which type of component we're looking at, and this one where it's an empty diamond with a smaller filled diamond in it is an interface representative. Its job is to say, this is what this functional piece of, you know, HTML looks like in the world of this product and that product's brand language. Like, kind of how we've all been. When you think of components, these are the things you think of: interface representatives. There's other types. That's why we need to distinguish and give them names, I think. But I think seeing that is helpful, especially on the canvas. Like, you know, when we zoom way out, like I can see even here when I can't read the names fully, that these are interface representatives. I still don't know how to handle brand elements. Yeah, I'm gonna have to expand on it. So there's gonna be 8 types, I think. But, you know, asset components, creative asset components, who knows? I don't know if they're as helpful in the layers panel, especially in instances like this, where, like, I guess it's good to see that you're working with an interface representative. And we can see that we're working with a sidebar section, like, cool, but in the, I'm struggling with this because we've got limited space in the design panel. We can't expand and collapse it, you know, the same way we can over here with the layers panel. So I'm tempted to here grab all those names, call them new for now, and grab the first one. This is going to be budget. Just name them after the section. So then after budget comes tracking, and then after tracking comes loans, I believe. Let's see if we got that right. Oh, wow, no. Okay. I thought that overriding those names here would override what these are called. Oh, that's fascinating. Okay. So the fix would be if I really was stubborn about getting this to say budget, loans, tracking, what I would have to do is recomponentize this per section. I wonder, do we have the ability to rename it? Nested instances. Hold on, hold your horses. Let's reset. Okay, no, there it is. Oh, okay, because, all right. Oh, that's so strange. Why didn't that go through the first time? No, so we had it right. When you override your nested instances names, that does change how they appear here. This now says budget. We can turn on loans. Okay, and we got it mixed up. It revealed tracking, so we need to correct that. Loans real, and then select fake loans. That's actually tracking. Go back to loans real. Just call it loans. Okay. That's great, because what I was going to say was that we'd have to have this interface representative to like handle the styling and then make another version of this exact same component using instances of these and naming them what we wanted to name them, which just for the sake of like getting correct labels for these nested components in the design panel, I don't know if that's worth the cost. Okay, that's cool. Oh, hold up. I'm just pressure testing these switches, and yeah, I think what we need to do, this came up the other day as well, is in here, like we can get away with these not being in an extra container, because the container that they are in, like it's just 0 pixels of space between. We don't need to do anything different or extra around these layers, but I am going to have to, for this reason, put them in another container. So that way that container is the thing that gets hidden when we move from collapsed to not collapsed. This also, I think this is helpful. I think this is a helpful thing to, I'm using different language. Here we're saying collapsed, but for these like accordions, we're using the verb open. And so we've kind of got like opposite things going on, right? Like collapsed is sort of the opposite of open. But I think it's helpful since this kind of gets repeated. Like if you have loans and tracking on, like similar language down here using different language up here for like that parent component. I don't know. I'd be interested to hear from other folks what they think about those property names. Because that's an interesting dilemma that we start to have, like especially with, yeah, bringing up nested components properties. Like you're gonna have, they're not just in their own little isolated property groups anymore. You're gonna be bubbling them up in bigger components and have to think about those property names in context with another component's property names, like in the same space. They're all in the design panel now, so you have to be really, I think, just picky. Maybe not picky, but just careful about that stuff. So we're gonna wrap these in a frame, name it container, and on this one, container will be visible, and we still get the same, I think. Here, take that off. We're gonna get, that's not gonna change the functionality of these toggle switches here. But when we do the same down here, when we grab budget, loans, and tracking, and we use Shift A to put that in an auto layout frame. And we name that container. Here, what's going to happen is these will all be revealed. It's going to be the container that gets hidden. So showing in our not collapsed state, hidden in our collapsed state. It's the thing that's wrapped around the accounts, right? So that should fix, yeah, what's going on here. Like we can have loans and tracking revealed, right? Here they are. But then when we collapse, they're gone because it's the container around those layers that's being hidden now. So that fixes that at a very low cost. Okay, hopefully we're done now. I think that's the only thing here that swapping that was worth revisiting with the new features. Now, almost an hour in, oh, and I can get rid of my local component there. I think this is all that's needed. Oh, let's count up the layers. How many layers? Well, and let's just do it for an instance. But how many layers are needed? And let's reveal, well, yeah, everything else is just hidden, so this will count everything up. But I want to know how many layers are required for sidebar component to exist. 53. That's excellent. And of course that number is going to go up. We're basically looking at a pseudo empty state here. We haven't swapped in any local content. You know, we are going to have to add our accounts back in our demo YNAB account, but that's great. That's, I'm really pleased with that. Okay, so now we can work on up here. Budget. And this, oh, and this is going to be an interesting one. Okay, so this, oh, I did not even represent this well. When I, you know, tweeted to do my little go live countdown, but it's not just this area. This is just one tab. This area is very dynamic depending on which tab you're on. Look here, now we've got these things. We've got these tabs. Again, we don't have to worry about toolkit reports. It's like an add-on thing. Maybe it would be interesting to build that as well. And then in all accounts here, which would be true, this would be the same thing that we would be looking at for like an unlinked, you know, checking account. Let's just add this back in. We have $1,000 in checking. Great, there it is. Yeah, so going between all accounts and here, this is basically the same. The only thing that's changing is this label to show us where we are, and then we can only reconcile individual accounts. And yeah, so we'll have some interactivity over here. But first, let's start with budget. There's already enough going on here. So we've definitely got back in the inventory, which is quite messy, but it's okay. We've got some screens to reference here. Yeah, all these different states. A question that I see come up sometimes in the Figma community forum, and I recently joined the Figma design subreddit, just to kind of like cruise around and see what folks need help with that I would be able to help them or advise them about. And a question I've seen come up a couple times is like, how do I get used to auto layout? And that's, I'm reminded of this because the advice that I think, and I want to think about the advice for a little bit before I just start plastering it all over the internet. But the advice that I want to give is to start with like the innermost piece. And that's coming up now for me as I'm looking at this component where I'm trying to just look at these screenshots and think about the most inside elements. And it would probably be these pieces of text, this label that shows us how much money we need to assign, and then the label itself. Like these would get wrapped in an auto layout frame. That frame would get wrapped in an auto layout frame with this button, right? And then that's the thing that makes up this green like padding that we see. And then that gets put in an auto layout frame to make up the whole blue field that we see, and so on. You don't have to build that way, I think, if you feel comfortable with auto layout, but I find that that's working it inside out is kind of how Figma not expects, but like I think there's a bias there. Like if I start with a frame and if you're big into shortcuts, like Shift A wraps that frame in. Oh, well, now it just adds auto layout, but if I hit Shift A again, we've got yet another frame. Turn that like slightly gray, Shift A, yet another frame, right? So I think that's where the advice comes from about just start with the innermost pieces. I might not do that though. Because with what I just demoed, when we flip between these, we see that the background color is consistent, but the contents are changing, but it's the same piece of interface. So I think the first thing I want to build is a really simple frame with auto layout, and it's going to use that blue background, and we're going to get one of our placeholders and we're going to put it in, and you know, oh god, is that was padding. There we go. I think what we want is to have that fill all available space. So I think what this component is going to do well, we need to check, but what I want to see is like the padding. Is that consistent? If it is, then yeah, then we'll be okay. So we've got 16 definitely on the left. Great. Now how about the bottom? That is not using padding. It's 64 pixels tall, and this is 39 pixels tall. 64 minus 39 is 25, and then if you divide 25 by 2, you get 12 and a half. So 12.5, 12.5. And I'm going to assume that the padding is even on the other end, but we'll see. Okay, so that's all it counts. Let's check that padding on the side. Oh, wait, we can kind of see it. Hold on. Maybe not. Okay. Oh, but it's set to flex. Cool. Cool. Let's go to our checking account because that's where we know this element appears on the right. And that has 16 pixels on the right. So that's great. That confirms that. Let's check out reports. What changes here? Nav, we don't want nav, we want this guy, this guy, this guy. All right, what do we got? We get 16 on the left. Again, that's great. But how about, this looks a little taller. Oh, is it? Hold on. I'm gonna take 2 screenshots. I should be doing this on the inventory page, but we'll get these even, and I will just crop that. Yeah, I thought so. Okay. Difference of like 2 pixels down here. And that might have something to do with the content, but I bet you that the padding is the same, and I've lost where I was. Oh wait, we're going back to reports. That's what we're working on. Okay, this guy. So let's get into this div. 20 on the top. That's the, okay, and that is part of like the click area. So I guess what we would be componentizing, I'm having doubts now about my plan. My plan to have a component that just has a swapper, and we're going to swap out like different content depending on which tab that we're on. Because then all we're componentizing is the padding and the color, the background color. And those aren't difficult things to update. And I would want the click area, right, to be as true to life as we can make it. So I think what they're going for here is that like there's a lot of room. There's a lot of room for your cursor to be up here and selecting one of these tabs. So what this would mean is that in this case, we would like override that top padding on an instance of that component. Yeah, I don't know if it's worth it. I don't know if it's worth it. So let's delete that. And we'll just set up, I think these are going to be different components. Like I'm not going to put them all as variants of each other because they're never going to exist in the same. Space, and they have different compositions. Like they've got different stuff inside of them. Oh, and we're gonna probably, yeah, we're gonna run into some icons that aren't yet built. So let's fix these up. What were we doing? 12 by 12 for everybody. Icon. Chevron circle. Left. Up. Right. Down. I don't know if we're going to need all these, but we'll definitely need left and right, right? We'll need those there. That might be the only one we're missing. So, we can grab some of those. And these are definitely bigger than 12 by 12. 40 by 40. Actually, it may not be that big, right? Because oh, it looks like, okay. No, they've got some sort of there is padding there. They're like, yeah. Let's go based off of those screenshots again. Take those over to the inventory. Yeah, it's not quite right. Okay, so these are going to need to be in containers with 5 pixels of space around them to make it 40 by 40. More accurate. And the color will probably be white. No, blue. And not one of those green blues either. This is the first time we're going to, yeah, actually be using blue. We need both of these container, put them in here. These are going to have to be in some other sort of container, and we're going to get month. Yeah, we are using ellipses there. Oh, those don't need to be grouped. There we go. What gray is that? Okay, and those have, let's see. These have a hover state where we go from that blue to something like that. I'll just double check. Not quite. Not quite that one. I guess I wasn't grabbing hover states when I was originally auditing for these colors. So we will just take that and make it color. Got 725 here, so this is probably going to be teal. Where would that go? I want to compare it real quick. Let's do some swatches. So this is our new one. That's our new one. And let's see how it compares. It's definitely lighter than that. It's lighter than 800. Yeah, it is in between. So we've got 725, something, 800. Maybe this is 750. Good enough for now. Okay, great. So we've got our icons, and then these need to get put into a component set using auto layout because we need a hover state while hovering. And this is going to be a really specific. Oh man, I kind of want to. This is interesting. You know, like our icons here are really just us kind of establishing a library of pictograms. They are super decontextualized. Oh, I want to, hold on, those were already 12 by 12, so we should just reset these. Reset. change to white. Reset, change to white. Great. But now we are using them in context. They have a color applied, they have a hover state, and these might come up elsewhere. These chevrons with circles, I don't think they will, to be honest. Oh, no, here they are again, smaller. They might be the same exact thing, right? But context. Oh, that today. We've got a today button. Okay. So we need to like rewrap them. And so what do we name this? This is also an interface representative. So we'll use that. This is kind of pagination. We'll call it month paginators. Probably a crummy name, but and we'll put those in here. Now, by 30, but they need to be bigger than that. Five. Name that container. Let's clean up some of these names here. So we've got this as well. Month, year, container, enter a note, container. It's my go-to because for now it's better than frame and it's describing the job. I don't want to get hung up on the, well, what does it contain quite yet. And we know that this is called a header. That's like going to be our component name. And it's going to be an interface representative eventually, so we can just put that symbol in place. How about the space between? Oh, when you hover over this whole thing. Okay. This might need to be its own component. Right, because we're missing something. We need our chevron. Or down. Yeah. That needs to go in here, and we should change the alignment. Make sure we're using our color styles. Okay. And it's not white, it's that blue. It's the same blue. And it gets the same hover state. So we'll do the same thing. This one with our new teal 750, rewrap them as a component set. We'll call this month picker, selector, or chevron. It's not a chevron. This is a horrible name, but I'm going to stick with it for now. And let's get rid of that really wild padding. Okay, so now, well, we've got our hover state. Oh my gosh, and we haven't been naming our properties, so this is going to get cranky. We've got default and hover. We don't need two properties here. Default, hover. But I don't think I'm going to set up the interaction here because, as you can see, hovering over any part of what is going to be this container, which I think we want to set to fill, is going to trigger that hover state. So I want the state available, but not, the interaction doesn't exist at this level. which is why I think this is going to need to be a component. The other thing that's messed up here is that this is not the right component, but we're good. We can just swap that out. We should still get the interaction. Also, underline. That underline shows up when you're specifically hovering over that text. So if we started, oh my gosh, to set some of these up, here we've got hover state. Let's fix our property name. State. Wow. Now that I'm thinking about it too, actually, these containers should get taken care of here. Let's on both of these add auto layout, ungroup that, or take the frame away, and then we'll do the same thing, 5 pixels, and then we get that same treatment back. Let's do 888 all around. Doesn't need to be that big. Okay, great. So now this whole thing, yeah, is going to trigger the interaction, which is true, right? We can get kind of close to the icon, but not like right on top of the actual vector, and that's triggering the state. So that was the correct setup. Okay, so we've got a hover state for this container, but then we also need a hover state for you're hovering on the text. And because the text is inside the container, we just need a third one here where this gets underlined. So this will become a component set. We're also talking about state here. And so we've got, while hovering on this, change to that state. While hovering on this, change to this state. And we gotta update the noodles. While hovering. Now maybe underline isn't, no, we'll have to, unless we can put a stroke. Yeah, nope, underline, okay. And now we gotta name these things. So we've got hover month container, and then we've got hover note. So that's fine. And now we can get rid of that. We have a real component. We can put that in here. And we can actually hit play on that. Let's make sure we have a flow starting point. And that's working as you would expect. Great. And I think I've got the wrong blue. Yeah, it's that one. It's teal. It's a teal. It's not the navy. Great. So we've got these interactions taken care of. As for clicking on them, this is tough because you can just click your way into decades and decades and decades into the future on these, or the past, when you open up this little modal. And I don't think for a component library, it's worth prototyping the component for that. I think that's, it's trying to predict too much, too many specific use cases or edge cases even, and the majority of them won't get used. And then you've got lots of junk laying around your component library. The same way last time I talked about, I'm not going to, when we get to this section, just try and fill each what are called category groups with hundreds of category rows as a way to, account for edge cases, because it's inefficient. It's wildly inefficient. And the same goes for paginating through the years up here. It's just not, I'm not going to try and predict the future like that. It's not a good use of components That's something that designers can set up in their local files, and then they're making 100% use of all the components that they choose to set up. It's better for everybody, you know. Fewer hidden layers, you get better performance, and it's less confusing. Your layers panel stays tidy. You're not polluting it with all these hidden layers. So, how to handle this? When we click on it, it reveals something. I might come back to do on-click interactions like this because, and here's the other thing, this isn't even, you can see, this is not actually a library file. I do not have a paid Figma account, so I won't be able to publish this and kind of test it the way I would as a true component library. Bringing local instances or bringing instances from it into a local file and then prototyping with them. But I think I would package this up in a certain way so that way folks could grab an instance of this kind of date picker. I guess they would have to set that interaction up manually. So we could still build this. We can build this guy. We would have to. And I think I've got in the inventory, yeah, notes on that. So we've got these month items. These are buttons. Oh, this is helpful, right? And we've got, yeah. Okay, let's start with these innermost pieces. This is going to be so fun. We'll start with January. Ready to assign amount, ready to assign label. I'm going to guess calendar note, but bold. Not quite. 15 pixels. Is it extra? That might be it. Let's add this style. So this is under header, and this would be calendar picker month title. And actually, let's do April because now we've got a sense of like a container here. Like how much space does this need? We know it's going to be centered, and it needs to look like a square. So trying to line that up. That's pretty close. I guess 10 on both sides, but that doesn't really get us a square. How many different states do we have? So we've got this tile 46 by 40. I guess that's fine. And let's make this fixed width. Let's double check that too. I'm sure these are going to be fixed width because otherwise it's going to get like weird. They're not going to line up the way you would want them to. So 46 by 40.66. So that's actually really close. I'll leave it how it is. So we've got a regular old tile. Oh, and we need our rounded corners. So we've got the current month. Yeah, what's going on? So it's currently September. So as we go through this, we can see, oh, okay, this is always going to show us for 16 items, more than a year's worth, right? Why can't I go to January? I can't go to January 2022 because this budget was started in February. So this is showing me, and same for like October and December. These are showing me months that it has to show for the year. But months that I'm not allowed to go to either because the budget was started mid-year or I haven't budgeted far enough into the future that it's going to allow me to get to November and December. So we've got that covered. Then there are clickable months, right? Those are darker. So if I select February, we're looking at February. Then we have, well, let's go another step. Let's go back to the current month. And then, I wonder if the interface has changed. I'm not, like, this dot thing is really, I'm not seeing a way to get that to come up. But we have a hover state. So a repeat of this, does the text color change? It doesn't look like it. That might be too dark. We put that on a white background. Yeah, that looks correct. Okay. So we've got our hover state, and then when we press, yeah. When we click down, we get like our focus state. So while pressing and focused are pretty much the same. Let's actually just test that out. Yeah, correct. Okay. Effects, focus visible, and we need to clip content in that case. So I guess we've got, gosh, a lot going on. And then we've got the month that we have currently, okay, I think this is how they used to do it. They used to put a dot for the current month, but then the month that you're viewing is like the bright kind of brand color. So let's just grab one of these. And the text turns like white. Oh, it's not, nope. We need the blue. It's the blue, okay. And then the month that it actually is, like if we're looking at the past, but it's actually September, it's got a lighter gray than the hover treatment. And it's also using the blue text. So I don't know if we have that shade. So we've got that, and we've got blue, and this would be gray 50 or something. Okay, so these are all the states. Really complicated. Got a component set. Let's put auto layout on it. Let's make them run vertical and just do 4 pixels around, or well, let's do 8. And this would be, I'm going to move this over to our components page. Our, let's see, month grid tiles. And these are interface representatives. This should not say container. This should say, well, what's the class name? Maybe we already know. We don't. Oh, and I'm not even interested in that guy. I'm interested in... budget header item, budget header calendar. I think we'll call it, yeah, budget header calendar. That describes a couple things. It tells us you're on the budget tab, It's in the header space, and this is the calendar thingy, which also has a today button wrapped up in it. That's important. So we're gonna need one of these for like, are you on the current month? Okay, interesting. But coming back to this guy, so there's definitely a state property, but it's not just state. It's whether or not, like, the month that you're looking at is the month that you're viewing. So selected, the month that you've selected, right? And then there's also like equals today. Oh, it won't let me do math symbols in here. Is today, right? And that's this one. So that's true. Everything else is false. And then same for, let's do is selected. That's like this one, true. Everything else false. Oh, that's not, You could, okay. Yeah, I don't know if that's true. Because when we go back to September, yeah, there is a style for that. And this has a hover state. Of course it does. Oh, and this has a hover state. Oh my goodness. Well, first, let's get this in here. So this is more complicated still. Do we still have all the right states? We do. Is selected, is today. That has a hover state. We're going to have variants that look like duplicates, but it's necessary for the logic to work about is selected and is today. So, okay. Holy moly, there's a lot going on. So this, and this guy, these are all default. This is like a resting state. I think we've taken care of hover states, like this one. Ooh. I should actually have this run horizontally so I stop running into that. I'm just going to actually go down the line to make sure to see where I've got conflicting. Yeah, frame 3. That looks like a hover state to me. And then this is like pressing and focus. And I want to use simple sort to start to clean this up. This is a really great plugin. Let's see, run manual. Just to help like get everything figured out. Yeah, so now we've got happening in rows, default, hover, pressing, focused. And we will need pressing and focus states for these guys as well. Then you've got, is this the month that you have currently selected? That's happening in columns. And then is this also the month that matches today's month. So yeah, I think that's how I want these arranged. It'll just make it easier. So we know for these guys, let's see, this is pressing and this is focus. So for pressing, we can do that. Add the effect, focus visible, clip, pressing. And then when we're just using like our keyboard, we'll grab a copy of that state. We'll also clip the contents. Focus visible. Okay. Same here. Okay, why is it still cranky? Ah. Oh, we're missing another property. We need to be able to say, can select, right? Oh, and what happened to those? Right now that's true. But what happened to these guys? Let me put this on a white background so that way we can actually... Yeah, we need another variant in here. False. What is wrong about this one? This one is not selected. It is not today. It is true. No, we need that one in here. And also real quick, this should say, yeah, just month. Month is a good layer name for that. Yeah, what's wrong with this one? What's going on? It's in its default state. It's not selected, right? Because if it was, it would look like one of these. It is selectable. This is one of these months. Not sure, I'm not sure. Well, the settings are correct. So we must be missing another property to help differentiate. We've got the state, the interactive state. We've got whether or not this tile is currently selected, which is represented by these guys, right? It's true. It's false for everything else. Correct. Okay. Then we have is the current date today. And that's definitely true for these ones, right? And then one of these, yeah, it's false for these, but it can also look like this when you happen to you are selecting, like if we go to September here, this is both, yeah, this is the current month. It's both selected and it's today. That's a possible combination. And it's selectable. So that's these guys. And then, yeah, can it be selected? That's this whole group. Apart from this one, which doesn't have any interactive states because you can't select it. In fact, this would be better off called enabled, right? False, true for everything else. Ugh, this is super annoying. I want this to be in the right order. Yeah. Change the applied values. It's only that one. So unless, yeah, I thought maybe there's like, do we have some sort of like duplicate in here? I don't think so. Where else is this true? Where this is the default state, it's not the selected date. It is today and it is enabled. I guess it's this one. But that's not true. Because this also represents being today. It's not this one. I thought the whole point of this, you know, some variants have the same, like plural variants have the same thing, but it's only, oh, wait. Oh! Oh my gosh, that was it. They were overlapping. Thought I would have fixed that way sooner. Okay, we're good. Jeez Louise. I'm gonna move enabled up a bit further because this being true or not affects what combinations are possible here. I think is today is a bad label. Is this month is maybe it. Current month. Ugh, although we lose that. But it's I think it's the most accurate description. Okay, all that trouble, we've got it. So I can take off the fill. So that's figured out. We've got our month grid tiles. Done. Now, So that makes up the bulk of this, and it's always going to have this arrangement: January, February, March, April. So they're separating the year into trimesters, and that means for these guys, I think what I want is for them to all just say month. Kind of looks like Monday, but that'll all get overridden. And I think what we would have is a component, you know, like just like with the button labels, those all say label, but they get put into places where the label is kind of this fixed thing. Like it's never going to say something else. It's not going to get overridden a ton. So it'll just be part of that larger component. What we're doing here, all we're concerned with here is like the interactive states and the styling, right? And we can update that stuff in bulk. So if we take one of these, oh my goodness, and start to lay it out. How much space is between these? It's like some, and I'm gonna do it in rows. Rows with like 4 pixels between. So there's our first trimester, second, third, and we've got January, February, March, April. Make sure those are correct. Yep. May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. Great. And oh man, this is going to be a component where it's going to be so handy to first trimester bubble up instances, second trimester, third trimester. Great. Those can go in an auto layout frame. We'll call this the grid. And then we've got another set of those guys. So this is starting to shape up to be our component. And this is what I mean about working smallest to biggest. You can see it came together like that. I started with the smallest pieces here, and I looked to see, you know, how are they arranged in relation to each other. I could have done, you know, rows like this or columns like this, but that's weird to have January, May, September. I wanted to go in order, right, left to right, top to bottom. So the divs, the frames are going to follow that, but those got wrapped and then they got wrapped again. Now we're in grid. So I'm just using Shift A to like add additional layers on top of this. And now I'm looking at this next chunk where we've got these guys again, but smaller. Aha. And they're kind of being weird about it. So I think what I want to do is set these to be a fixed width and then take the inner icon and have it set to fill. So that way I can use that same interaction style. But yeah, you can see here it's fixed up and I can override stuff. I could like click in here and, you know, maybe I want 0 padding. So what do we got? Inspect. It's 32 by 32, but with some padding. So maybe I'll do 2. And we've got this one. Got another one on the right. And then we've got the year name. Okay, kitty. Let's see. .1 rem. It's like slightly bigger than these other ones, so this year it's not that quite that. It's just a touch. I'm just gonna go up to 17. I think it's just gonna have to start being component specific. For this one, I want to use space between on these guys, and I know that those are going to sit together. This probably has... I'm going to make this in charge of this horizontal rule. This also has like an interesting target area. So we've got padding of like 6, an additional 6 pixels on the top and bottom. So we'll say, well, we'll just make that 8 and 8. Oh, but that doesn't work so good. Can we come in here and set that to be a fixed height? And then that, oh, this is getting tough. Okay. Maybe this thing needs to be a fixed. These can be fill. Yeah. And that will be fill. Yes. So that way we've got like this really big area for hover to match what's going on here. Let's see. Like if the whole month picker increased in width. Ah, okay. Not what I wanted. But I'm gonna assume that, you know, these are flexible. Fill. Same with these guys. Like these should be set to fill. Yeah, so it does this. And then maybe with these, we actually want them to do like space between like that. But we'll just have like a minimum width that puts them, oh wow, that was lucky. 4 pixels between each other. So this is 4 pixels. Yeah, between. Great. So this is the width that we want to be operating at. And then this guy has some sort of like stroke, bottom stroke, like a gray bar on the bottom. Makes sense. And this definitely is not that much space between. It's not that dramatic, and that gray is also not that dramatic. More like that. What is the height of this? Come here, kitty. I'm streaming. You can't get in the way. All right. So that's 32 by 32, but then when you add 6 pixels on either side, you get 44 for a height. So we'll put that back. Come here. And then for this whole thing, we need to figure out the padding. It looks like, I mean, we can give it the white fill. And we'll say 8 and 8. There might be, let's see. 10 on the sides. And then what about the bottom? I mean, it's probably even. 10, 10. And then we've got rounded corners. Might be more like 8 pixels. Cool. Not that this will ever stretch, but I think it could be helpful for prototyping. I'm going to take a quick break, but I do want to wrap up this component before I stop streaming. I just need to set this cat down somewhere. All right, really close to wrapping this up. And then I think I'll call it quits after we get this piece built. Notice some things going on here, some layers that we can clean up. We've got frame 1 here that can just say container. This is the year. It's good to override layer names here for override preservation. It's more important with variants and like when you're swapping stuff, but it's just a good practice, a good habit to get into. I think label your layers and not let the text on the canvas by default. Figma will use that to match your layer name, and I like to just be in that habit, not doing that. So it's a couple things I noticed. Like if we go into outline mode, we've got 10 pixels all around, but that's creating some unevenness here and here with our padding, which isn't going to be the case for this. We want it to look I think we want it to be even. So I think we might need to increase this to 10 and then decrease this, right? Because we've got, with these guys, 8 pixels top and bottom. So we might only need 2 up here to give the appearance of 10 pixels. And that looks pretty good. There's more space here though. But we know that this is 44 pixels, so maybe we actually need these. Like we know that when we select these, well, no, that looks pretty even. Like even amount of space above and below those icons. So what's going on? Maybe it's where our stroke is placed. Instead of on the inside, we could put it on the outside. It kind of helps. And then if we had February, set to hover. Actually, yeah, we might have had that be 8 pixels, so it matches this 8 pixels. That seems closer if I'm just eyeballing things. So let me turn that back to, yeah, default. Okay. Now, cleaning this all up is going to be its own job, but the last piece that we're missing is this little triangle up top, and I wouldn't want that to be part of the frame. So it's good that we have clip contents turned off. I wonder if that's an SVG that is something we could grab. Aha, yes, okay, great. And we've got a path, and we can copy that, and then I'll use that SVG, paste SVG plugin. There it is. And what's the height? And it looks like it's squashed a little bit, 30 by 15. So we'll do 30 by 15. And we'll want those to be in a frame, but have this be absolute positioned, right? And we'll want it to always be centered, but pinned to the top. So we'll just, yeah, nudge this up until it reaches that point. And now we've got frame 3. Might even be able to have it in frame 2. Let's do that. Yeah, because then we don't need frame 3. And we'll call that this whole thing, probably called like month picker. Yep, month picker. And that is our component, but we're not finished. because we've got a bunch of nested components in here. We don't need to worry about these paginators quite yet, unless we were doing some local prototyping, but being able to access all these different toggle switches for the individual months available at the top instance level is going to be huge. So what we want to do to make that possible is bubble up nested instances. And of course, we've got 12 and they're all named silly, month grid tiles right now, but we should name them after their month. So we'll just make sure we've got all 12 selected. And that's going to look really, yeah, that's kind of crazy actually. But is what it is. I think for prototyping, it's sort of necessary. And this doesn't have any, properties itself. It's just all these guys. So let's get the layer names cleaned up. This would be January, February, March, April, May, right? Let's make sure we're good. Yeah, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. Okay, now that's working. All right, so yeah, so we could say like, yeah, January is enabled, and it's also the current month that we have selected. And it is this current month. So what these are for are really for like just the prototyping capabilities. So yeah, that's awesome. This is a really great, I think, showcase of why this feature is going to be a huge quality of life gain for folks. And that was so easy to set up. Really, really easy to set up. So something we could do is set up some smart defaults. It's very unlikely that every single month is going to be, disabled. So I think what we can do is have everything enabled by default. Oh, and oh my gosh, back on we haven't set up any real prototyping connections between these, but we know because we set up the states what those are. So we've got this first row representing our default state. So these just need to cascade down while hovering, while pressing. And then on this state, when you go from pressing and you let go, actually the whole thing closes. It closes the overlay. Yeah, so on click, we'll have an interaction. This is on click. Oh, on click, close overlay. So that will just be the case for all of these. While hovering, while pressing, close. While hovering, while pressing, close. Did I do that right? Yeah, okay, last one. While hovering, while pressing, close. Okay, so now if we test this out for real, let's grab a frame, make the background color dark. We'll get one of these month pickers in here. Oh, well, let's first actually, oh my gosh, no, we'll test out this header. We'll say, right, on click, open overlay, and yeah, it'll be instant. Let's have it bottom center. Let's try that. I usually manually place things, but oh, let's flow starting point, flow 2. Okay, it's not quite what I wanted. We will need to manually place this. So this would be like, you know, we're setting this up in a local file. Yeah, open overlay. Let's manually place it. We want that to kind of, where are these half pixels coming from? I don't know, something like that. All right, there we go. And then, yeah. And the idea would be that this would then be like the selected month. And we'd have one to start with as well. Could actually do that. Let's say, you know, the current month is September. So September is our current month. It's also the month that we're looking at. And let's say we're just, for our prototype, we're going to next month. Oh my gosh, these should be a little bit more spaced out than they are. Let's find out what that minimum width is. Just gonna add 8 pixels until I get really close and then we can dial it in. Okay, that's pretty close. So let's take away 2 at a time now. Let's just take away 1. 4.3, take away 1 more. I'm going for, yeah, 4 pixels in between. Okay, so 216 is what these need to be. Width 216. Great. So what we're going to do is go from September to October. And I guess in this one, yeah, we need to go down to October. And that one is now it. Just turn off its current. Or wait, no. Well, September is the current month. So we'll have that. And what will happen is we'll close the overlay. Oh, do we need to have like kind of a double situation going? Oh, but here's what we could do. Okay, so if this is a world where we've got local components here, you know, we could recomponentize these. So, yeah, month picker, month picker. We'll just say this is like 1 and 2. And we'll set up some new prototyping connections. So when we click on this, this overlay opens. We're working with an overlay now. And when we hover on October, we know that we're going to get a hover state. When we press, we get the pressing state. And then when we let go, which performs a click, it closes the overlay. So instead, what we can do is once that overlay closes, I wonder if we can actually... Oh, how would we do that? What I'm trying to do is prevent us from having to like duplicate this frame. Oh, but we would anyway. We would anyway, right? Because this would say September 2022, right? So that's that one's overlay, and here's this one. October. Yeah, we've got a content change. So upon pressing this one, if we go to prototype, gosh, maybe we end up here. And then here, instead of bringing this overlay up, we would bring up this overlay. Let's see if that works. We open this, we click, but it closes the overlay. So maybe that means that having this here is not helpful. Let's see if having removed that Yeah, that fixes it. And we can go back. We can say, yeah, September, if we want to go back. Clicking that leads us here, but we still get our while pressing state. So that's really cool. So yeah, that's how that would get set up in a local file. So it's good to test it out. We've got a working month picker. We got these little tiles. I think that's a lot done for, I guess, one of many of those like header sections. We've got, and it's not even all of the budget one, actually. We haven't even, we just did the date picker. There's still that, you know, that big green to be assigned piece next. So as always, this takes longer than I thought, or than I ever think it will. But it's cool. It's fun. Learning a lot. As always, if you are watching this after the fact, the recorded state of this stream, and you've made it this far, thank you. If you'd like to join me for one of these live and kind of help me troubleshoot some stuff, or if you've got ideas or reactions to how I'm setting up these components, and so some of these, like, especially the types of components, putting those little pictograms in front of their names, if you've got thoughts, feelings, opinions about that, I would so welcome those to be part of this series. Yeah, I'm finding it useful. If it's useful for other people or not, that would be great to know. It's right now just a theory that I'm testing out solo, but I think to really put it, you know, through a proper test, it's going to require brains that maybe don't think exactly like mine. So yeah, if you'd like to be notified about when I stream, tends to be weekends. And I'm trying to, like, kind of every other weekend-ish when possible. But life happens. So I can't commit to that fully. But yeah, you can subscribe. You'll be notified when I schedule streams. You can also sign up for my newsletter. I'll let you know when I write new blog posts, and I'll try and be good about picking out some of the best moments from these streams to send to you after the fact. And if I think I've got a really exciting stream coming up, we'll notify you. But yeah,